Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another Limbus Company reaction after quite a long time of just Millie glazing, really. But here we are with Canto 9 Boss Themes 1 and 2. I know there's other ones. I literally just grabbed these two. I don't know what other themes you might want me to listen to because I don't really get that many comments about these anymore with all the Millie stuff going. Those tend to be the ones that get voted on the most. So if there's a specific one I should get to after this, let me know, of course. But I'm going to listen to these first. So without further ado, let's go! Well, here we are again. God, it's been so long. Woo! Ooh! Ooh, it's got some sass to it. Wait a minute. I don't really recall these themes being quite this. I mean, some of them. But again, this got some stank. It's got attitude to it. More than I remember. Ooh. Ooh. I remember some of these having some stank, but this has like a different level of it. And I know it's just going to be like the short themes, and I have to try figuring out what the story is going to be off of this. It sounded like it's, I mean, I said attitude so many times. This is sassy. This one's got a little bit of sass to it. The absolute sass of this song is truly unmatched. I'm trying to figure out what that means for whoever this character is. You know, like there's so many characters I've heard in the Limbus Company lore that have that sassiness to them. And of course, they're villains. They're going to be a little bit full of themselves, have a little bit of that pompituity to them. And it's like, okay, cool. But like, what does that mean for this specific character? Why this specific way of personifying them is what's kind of bugging me here, because it's almost like there's the sass there, but it's also not necessarily intentional. I don't think that this is something where they're trying to pressure you with that sass. They're not thinking that they're truly better than you, end of story. There's just something like, it's almost rooted to their character type. And I feel like some of that comes from the song sounding kind of operatic in ways, might be slightly Italian in some. It seems almost like vaguely Spanish, which if you add like opera to Spanish, you do get a little bit of that like Italian flair. Don't ask me why, I don't know. It's just how that works out. Like, as we all know from like Italian stereotypes, that's kind of a thing, right? There's a little bit of a sass there, but it's like rooted in the personality and not necessarily this inherency of feeling like you belong on a higher threshold than somebody else. You know, like you are not necessarily better. There's just a little bit of the tude that comes with it. There's the sass that is just born into your DNA. It's a stereotype maybe, but that's kind of what a lot of music runs to anyway. They tend to borrow from the stereotypes to make these emotions a little bit more clear, because in media, at very least, those are the more prevalent depictions of these characters. So I would not be shocked to find out if this character was Italian, just based on the instrument choices, even like the flares of the trumpets and everything in there. Like there are so many little things going on in there, and so many ornamental little flourishes that it's just like, oh, I see what you're doing there, you little sassy bitch. It's fun to listen to, but also there is that grandiosity to it, just like any boss theme should. There is a character here who knows that while they may not be stronger than you potentially, they are going to make damn sure that it's going to be your problem. And that's kind of what I got with the song. The second it started, it's immediately already up at 100. They start there, you know, like I just sat down. You can't just show up with all that energy, but that's the sound of somebody who has something to prove. It's a musical approach approach that immediately signifies that this character is trying to act pompous, to try and put up that front, to make it sound like there's somebody who's more important, somebody who probably isn't the highest echelon of whatever troop they're a part of. But game logic shows me that it's going to be a weaker boss first, and then boss 2 would be stronger, boss 3 is even stronger. That leveling up is just how games work. So I'm assuming that that's very much the case here. So this character being theoretically at the lowest possible threshold for these boss fights has something to show, has something to prove. And that's kind of what this song feels like. There is a feigning of power and that pompous attitude. They're trying to apply a pressure that they don't really have the actual skill to back up, you know, like they're doing their best and there's still going to be a little bit of a challenge, but they're starting at 100 because if they start at 50%, there's nowhere else for them to go. You can't scale your power like that when you're already trying your hardest. So that's what gives me this thought that the character here is not necessarily the biggest, baddest bitch around and is trying to hide that by having such a bombastic track. Like I said, there's a bunch of other characteristics in it that just kind of add to the flair and add to a little bit of a theatrical feeling to this, which makes me feel like it's, again, a little bit more of a performance, like they're trying a little bit harder than the other ones probably will be. So I'm going to have to hear what the second boss theme has in store, and I guess we'll do that now. Ooh. Also starting at 100. This is more intense immediately, though. Ooh. Oh, I love that synth. Ooh, change up. Offbeat. Bit of a genre change up there, too. See, now this is interesting. This is different. This is... Ooh. Oh, man. A little bit more of a trickster, somebody who's more technically skilled, maybe. Again, there's similarities, but this has so much more of a threatening aura to it. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Okay, yeah. Yes, it's doing exactly what I thought it was going to do. The first one, a little bit less than this. This has a little bit more. Now I want to know what the third boss has. I don't have the time for that today, but I want to know what that one would sound like coming off the heels of this one. Now, this is a character that has a threatening aura. Like I said, this has a lot more energy to it. It's faster. There's more going on. There's more change-ups. This is a character with a little bit more confidence. Somebody who's more tactical. Somebody who's more methodical with their approach. And as such, very, very good at it. Somebody who's quicker and probably more technically skilled than the first guy, which again makes sense with the whole theory that they're just scaling up the bosses as they go. You start with the weaker one, you get stronger. This one feels like a natural progression of that, where now I feel a little bit more of that threat in there. The song has changed enough, adds more elements that aren't from the original. There's still some of that in there. Of course, you want to keep these motifs all tied together when the characters are related, and they do that here with the brass stuff especially, but including stuff like the quicker breakbeat fills makes me feel like this character is effectively a ninja compared to the first one. There's a completely different energy behind this, where the first one had a little bit of that like theatrical energy. They're trying to make it sound like they're a little bit more of a threat, and maybe they still are, but again, not quite as hard as the people who come after them. This one is where you're like, oh shit, now I'm scared. Like now I can feel the pressure being added on this song. The synths in here adding a constant humming underneath everything, keeping that noise, that again, that tension, that stress that the song that's reflecting a character who's even stronger than the first would be giving you. I know I've heard a lot of the songs from Cantos and stuff before. I know like how the bosses work as far as like scaling that up, but it's been a while. and I don't really remember what many of them actually sound like. So this is almost like getting into it all over again from scratch, because I don't remember the general approach that they actually take for this stuff. Studio EIM has always been really good at getting those sorts of characteristics in their songs, but I don't really recall exactly what those characteristics are, because it's been long enough that I'm like, what's going on? It's been, what, a few months, five? I think the last one was probably the Arknights collab, was the last one I talked about. So I kind of did forget how they approach music, and getting to hear this, now I'm like rediscovering the vibes of what they go for and what they stand for in their musical approaches. And it's just like rediscovering it all over again. This is so cool. But again, this is like the perfect evolution of the first one. You add another element, you add another style on top of it, you change things up a little bit, and adding more tension, obviously, so it's just a better version of the first song that feels more and more oppressive the longer you listen to it, and it doesn't relent either. Like halfway through the song, you get that one like little breakbeat moment that almost feels like the character themselves is having like a stumble, like they're not sure either, like you just caught them off guard and they're like, Jesus, like they stumble back a little bit, they realize that this is now a real fight, now they have to actually try. That's kind of the vibe I got from that. It could also be like a second phase sort of thing, but that kind of gives the same energy too, where they realize, oh shit, they're beating me, time to take it seriously. That's a pretty classic thing to do in any video game music, especially for a boss. You gotta have a second phase, make sure that that transition is clear, and it changes the song enough to make it feel like they understood too. The first song did that, but that's where like that trail happened with the trumpet, like shortly after the halfway point, and that had like this moment of, oh shit, like they stumbled forward, you knocked them off balance, and they're like, okay, don't do that again, time to fight. For this one, it was less of a stumble and more of just like the realization. There wasn't so much of a falter as much as there was a stutter. It might be a subtle difference or sound like a subtle difference when I describe it like that, but that distinction is very important when you're trying to get certain emotions clarified in the song and to be able to reflect that to the character. So I feel like this character, again, didn't necessarily get so knocked off balance as they did kind of stumble a little bit. It wasn't like a full fall on their ass sort of moment. It was more like an, oh, Jesus Christ, more like a jump scare, you know, like you've really caught them off guard, but not off balance, not off game, just an, okay, it's time to switch up my approach here. So that is the distinction between these two. This person feels much more like a proper fighter, somebody who's better trained and more technical, and the first person, while they definitely held their own, had the energy of somebody who was just lacking experience comparatively. So I love how they're personifying that, and I really do want to hear number 3. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna fucking do it. Let's go number 3. I'm gonna have to keep this short. Ooh. Okay, a little bit more regal. See, this has intensity. And they're keeping that placement of the halftime, so that's consistent too. Yeah, this sounds much more like somebody who's confident while also having that, like, presence behind them. It's not a perfect blend of the first two or anything. Ooh. There's a little bit of it, never mind. Ooh, okay. So it is kind of a blend of both of the first ones. So the confidence is there, the vibes from the first one are there. I thought it wasn't going to bring up the electronic stuff, and then it did with like a quarter of the song left, so that was interesting. I don't think that this character would be like an exact blend of the first two, but what else would it be? I mean, maybe that's just how they're personifying the final boss, is like they're the boss. So why wouldn't they have some elements from the others? I feel like that's been done before in Limbus. I'm getting ahead of myself though. So this did have a little bit more of the other characters in it. I'm really wondering how literal that may be, because this song had all the elements of the first one, all of that grandiosity, that theater to it, that theatrical vibe, but also a lot of the confidence of the second one. It was using more of the DNA of the first song with the confidence of the second song, less of that directly in the musical influence until that one spot, like a quarter of the song left. It's very interesting how they did that though, because like I said, it's a boss. It's the third boss, and you're assuming, okay, 1, 2, 3, that one would probably be some sort of a combination of these two, and that's maybe where these two got their identities from. But it also has enough unique property to it. It's a different sound from the first one. Even though I said that, yeah, they're borrowing from more of that energy, it's not the same general approach musically. It's individual in itself. This is even more operatic, more theatrical. The first one had a little bit more sass to it. This one felt more like a symphony than just like an opera or something that's a little bit more theatrical and has that property to it. This one felt more like a performance. It's a different art form. It might be borrowed from very similar sources, but they are not the same in tone and approach. So that makes me feel like this character is obviously the most confident one, probably the most technically skilled. That would also track, but at the same time, doesn't necessarily call themselves the boss, even though they might be. It feels like they are an amalgamation of the other two's themes, and like I said, they probably split those other two off of this theme as far as concept goes, and musically that would make sense for how they're working through these bosses. But again, this doesn't feel like a boss that's full of themselves. This doesn't feel like the theme of a boss that's like, yep, that's right, I'm the boss, fuck you. But I feel like that really isn't what this character would be like. I feel like this character would be more of like a personable character. I mean, compared to some other bosses that we've gotten that are just complete megalomaniacs, this one almost feels more middle managery. Like they're not the boss and they don't have the ego that carries that. They know they're important and better than the other people potentially, but it doesn't feel like they're making that their personality necessarily. Somebody who actually listens to their underlings and actually pays attention to that. Somebody who's willing to have that relationship with their underlings instead of just going, yep, I'm the boss, fuck you. Again, not a megalomaniac, somebody who is the boss, but doesn't necessarily make that their personality. And that's a good distinction too, because again, we've had other bosses that have had that, and it's just like, well, yeah, obviously you seem full of yourself. I can tell through the music that you are, in fact, a douchebag. This one feels way too mellow for that, despite the confidence. There isn't that theatrical presence, much like that first guy who felt like he was trying to make something of himself and trying to convince you that he was the best one. It doesn't have that presence. It just has the confidence that the second one did, which again usually comes with that maturity of knowing you're good and actually having the skill to back it up, not necessarily the ego that carries you into some dumbass plot or scheme like what happens with a lot of the megalomaniac boss styles we tend to get. So this is an interesting difference, and I don't know how true any of this is. That's the worst part, is like, maybe I'm right, but I never know. And it's been so long that I've heard any of the songs from Limbus that I don't know how accurate my assumptions are going to be on this. I'm a little rusty as far as these go. So like my ability to read these songs might be a little bit less than ideal. I'm probably more off than I usually would have been, but let me know if I am or not. And of course, I'll be reading the comments as I always do. So feel free to lord dump me and everything down in the comments below. But that's about all I got to say on this one. So thank you all so very very much for watching. If you have another song from this event or release of the game, I don't really even know how they handle that. Is the Canto, like the Cantos are like a thing. They're like an event, right? I forget. It's been a while, like I said. So like, I'm pretty sure, like if there's anything attached to this event or anything that's come out recently in general for Limbus that you want me to get to, by all means, drop in the comments below and I will do my best as always to get to those. Or if you don't want to do any of that, maybe just want to follow me and support me for more stuff coming in the future, you know how to do all that. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye!